a lot of my work has been focused around these in-between places, sort of focusing on value of place and the differences between colonizer perspectives of the value of place and those that sort of intrinsically belong here and are the ultimate custodians, whereas we are sort of different in our views of ownership. So Mooney Mooney in itself was one of these kind of incidental crossovers. So a lot of my work is really based within an improvised context. So things just will, I trust that things will always happen as long as I'm sort of listening, or and that's hopefully what my work encourages, and others as well, in terms of place and the sounds that these amazing places make. And in between spaces for me are these different zones. And through the lockdown, it was like that. We were going on these walks within our 5 kilometre radius. This one was pretty close to the edge, but just noticing, during this time that everything's slowed down, its focus has shifted. We're less productivity based, all these sort of colonizer kind of capitalist trajectories that we're always on. Mm-hmm. And so going on these bike rides and these walks that we were doing, came across this certain space, and it caught my attention, and it's caught quite a few people's attention. Actually, friends of mine have also written on the when I've shared this work, been like, oh yeah, I've been under there, I know what you mean, the sonic qualities of this place, and it's a mix. So the Mooney Mooney comes through this particular part over it's in sort of Mooney Ponds, Pascoe Vale, kind of heading west from Coburg, where I'm based, here in Naarm. And it's that this overpass, you've got this freeway, there's an overpass, and sounds are being generated by cars hitting certain points in the thick, highway concrete, resonating underneath. So the bike path goes underneath alongside the Mooney Mooney. So that's what they've done with a lot of bike paths in Melbourne, obviously, as they run them along the creek lines, because the water lines make the most sense, really, don't they? Yeah. I can actually read from this if I find I've got some, more information around the place itself. Yeah. So this work expands on an environmental recording. I tend to use environmental, not field recording, of an underpass of the Mooney Mooney travelling underneath the City Link.
Yes.
The Mooney Mooney is part of it's a 145 kilometre squared catchment creek that forms on Gunditjmara country and travelling to meet the Birrarung, which it's the largest tributary, on Wiradjuri country, then out to Nairn, meeting the Wareni. And this recording is taken from the sounds of the cars above on the freeway, hitting various points in the concrete. These strikes resonate in the space underneath the underpass where the Mooney Mooney cyclists and walkers pass through. The Mooney Mooney is known as the most abused tributary of the Birrarung in terms of toxicity runoffs. You can see small pipes and interesting coloured whatever, we don't know what, is leaking into this this creek that's being reformed into a concrete channel.
Yeah.
The creek was converted near Strathmore and funneled into a lifeless concrete channel by engineers to abate erosion in the interest of development. Mm. So a lot of work that I do is generally on sort of like in sites that are being developed. It's also really interesting to talk about these ideas of development, value,
development,
these kinds of things. And the bottom line is that no matter what, country is always underneath, no matter what capitalism and colonisation does above the surface. Yeah. But these toxicities and these runoffs, that's really damaging, and as rivers being so important and they're life-giving and they have supported people for who even knows how long, it's such a disrespect, but it's such an ignorance around these things. So, these engineers are going, no, it's for the interest of the developing the area, and we can't have erosion because we need to build this and this, and or else it's all going to collapse, which it probably wouldn't have done anyway, but it's sort of maybe it was an excuse for an experiment within development, like maybe the sort of European influences of channels. They wanted to do something. I don't know what. It's a really interesting place.
Yeah. And it's interesting, it seems like such a simple starting point to like look at that whole idea of development in terms of that word, even in terms of Western ways of thinking, you know, to really just kind of take a step back and think about, well, how is that part of the cycle of life? What is so central about?
Well, it's an arrogance, isn't it?
Yeah.
Ultimately, it's an arrogance of that white colonial or just colonial mentalities in general, that their ideas are better than what's here. But it's also a blindness or a lack of vision, you know, metaphorically as well as within your body, listening, looking, really, you know, trying without trying, like just not being more open to place, and not just always pushing your agenda onto anything, whatever it might be, regardless if it's a waterway or a forest or a, you know.
Yeah. And we get stuck in that cycle of seeing, you know, of seeing things in a certain way. You know, we think that this is the way to handle erosion, but maybe it's not. You know, maybe it's
Actually, I was having an interesting conversation the other day about, maybe it was with myself, and I think it was with someone else. It was with language and the words that we use over and over again as a society, as a colonial society. It's really, for lack of like a less harsh word, it's quite insipid. Like it's quite
it is
sneaky. And there's certain things that we say around, like I should have a list by now in my mind, but I don't. But like, you know, these certain key words that we have, especially when you're talking about people like buying houses and stuff. It's really, and like occupation of place and spaces and value. But these certain little words that people just sneak in, and they're people that are generally really quite open-minded. They're like pretty left. They can even be quite anarchistic in their views and whatever, but just sometimes this language, I think it's a really big deal, and a lot of the language needs to change. For example, why I don't call things field recordings, but I call them environmental. But even that, I need like better language.
Yeah.
And so this work also has issues with language within it, because so we've got to this, like there's this place and there's this cutoff point at Strathmore. So within this work, it's a series of photos. Well, no, it's a sound work, but then I always come from the audio, visual, get my priorities mixed up. But anyway, so the sound was the initial thing, and then from the sound, I responded in some way through the process of recording, but also brought it home again and sat with it and listened to it and left it on, and sort of would listen to this crazy rhythm that these cars are making as they go over, and they're resonating in the space underneath. So resonance for me is a really, as a sound effect, as an effect of sound, is special to me, because it's like a body. It's like a resonant body. So any hollow-bodied instrument, where is it? That way. Any hollow-bodied instrument or anything, it's you know, really, it holds sound within it. So I sort of thought of this place as that.
Anyway. Open presence. I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And then I went back after listening and took some photos. Yeah. But sort of trying to remain loose and remain not clarified and not too set in anything, to make it too documentary. But like usually I make video work, and I took some video, it didn't work. And just these held images really seemed to work quite well.
It did,
Yeah. So I think I'm sort of deviating all over the place, so hang on. Like you said, there's a lot to talk about.
We were talking about erosion, and you were sharing some of the work that's been done to kind of rectify in inverted commas, but
converted. So when they've done this at this point in Strathmore, thank you for bringing me back there. In Strathmore, there's this point. It's in the photos. That's how I got there. At this point, from here on, it's just like there's nothing. There's no life. There's no plants. There's a few scrappy things sort of growing where they can. along the channeled part. And there's been some replanting since the 70s by those various sort of the new communities, sort of environmental groups. You know how they have Friends of the Moon, like Friends of Creeks and stuff like that. I can't even remember how it happened, right? It was because I was listening to the sound at home, the dum 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 dum, and somehow came across, I was researching, sort of looking into what kind of animals there would have been there and what kind of life there would have been there before the concreting of it, and came across one that, and this is the language thing I was mentioning, pobblebonk frog. I'm like, that is the most like twee European colonizer cutie name you could give. And I went there and listened to the pobblebonk frog, and the only place that had a recording was wildambience.com. So here I'm going, oh no. And I had to buy rights to use the sound or do anything with it. And I'm like, no way, I'm not doing that. Are you serious? And I know that's probably quite rude, but
no,
whatever. And so I downloaded this thing through various means, and for the first run through, and I listened to the sound, and it sounded, the frog donk 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 makes this percussive like rhythm, and it fully is the same as those cars going over the top, and it was eerie. And I was like, okay, well, there's the connection here. There's the strange in between connection of past and present and ongoingness, and these weird overlaps and interactions that people just whiz by, a lot of the time. They don't spend a lot of time under this bridge. They pass through and they go, oh, that's a cool sound, and keep going, sort of thing. But I spend quite a bit of time under there. So these relationships.
And they correspond to each other through different notes, the frogs.
That's right. So when there's many of them, they slightly pitch up and pitch down from each other.
Yeah. And
so when I brought overall as a group, they're kind of like an arrangement. They're really beautiful. And there's a few other sites around quite close in here that you can hear them en masse. But there's none. And I was going out with my partner, and we were like, well, and usually in my practice it's like, don't actively seek, but hopefully something will happen or whatever. And she just said, let's go this way today. And we went this other way. I wanted to go the other way. She goes, let's go this way. And we went up to Strathmore to the point where it crosses over. And there was one pobblebonk frog just going on its own. So it's a male frog doing the call, I think, at first. And then I don't actually know what happens in too much detail, but the one frog was there. And it was so like, I know it's sort of naff and anthropomorphizing, but it was quite lonely because there was no other frog. It was just the one at this point. And it was interesting though, because it's literally in the photos, there's the crossover point in Strathmore where it goes from being the alive creek, beautiful rocks, normal, how it should be, cut off point, and it's just nothing. And that's how it is all the way out to the Wairangi now. It's just like goes like that.
And Eddie, when it came to sort of working with the piece, like the sort of environmental recording as such, you popped that through a synthesizer.
Oh yeah.
How did you go about that in terms of doing it? And
I popped it through. I could probably
making it sound
here somewhere. It's okay. Excuse the mess. So this is, it's got a piece missing. This is a Eurorack modular synth. So it's based in many different parts that kind of do a different job, each one. So it's like I ran the audio, the recording through the system in various ways, but mostly it was through a certain delay. And so delay is an effect, an audio effect. And I just love delay. I love it produces so much more out of it from something. It's like it mirrors it, or it responds to it, it augments it, it extends upon it, So when I put the sound through it, the percussion of the cars going overhead, along with the frogs at different points, it was that the original recording stays untouched, so to speak, but it's sort of expanded upon.
Yeah.
And it was expanded in the fact that it repeats, but I didn't use, so in the same way that with the cars going overhead, or with how when the frogs are all together they pitch up and they pitch down.
Yeah.
It was mainly focused around the cars one. I didn't affect the frogs in the end at all, because you don't want to put yourself all over everything in some way, but I wanted to respond in the place that I felt that I was responsible, in terms of overarching capitalism. And so with the delay, it was just pitching it up and down subtly. So the signal comes through, and then the audio rises and falls as it generates other little ding, 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 percussive parts. So I suppose by this point, instead of me sort of waving my hands around and describing it, we're probably getting close to playing a bit of it.
I think so. Yeah, definitely. And before you do that, because I think that idea of process-wise using delay to sort of look at the man-made elements, if you like, call them, there's this lovely mirroring with the frog, like with the whole idea of call and response. And there's a lovely sense of waiting in that space and listening attentively, that's kind of parallel that I'm feeling between. I don't know. It's just to think about the process in that way, is really, really interesting.
Yeah, no, thank you for saying. Yeah, exactly. Yes. Don't really have much more to say about it.
Let's listen to the work.
I think so. And then sort of talk about it a bit more. I'll see if I can do this part. Yeah, so it did, the work itself could also end up being just the photos with the ambient sound, but for this particular all extensive purposes video work. So I will be quiet, and the sound will come in shortly.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's certainly in this piece, it's like in all your works, there's a sense of moving through space, and it's often through nature, but also through spaces that bring nature into an intersection with the man-made. And I think that comes through really clearly and in a really resolved and beautiful way. There's a sense of movement through the work. You know, you've got that passing traffic overhead, as you said, the rushing water, the bike bells, you know, the bird song that goes in and out. So it's like different sounds and different registers that really bring all that to life. But yeah, there's just this beautiful feeling of several features really working together to convey that feeling of movement and intersection. Would you reflect a little on that for us a bit more? I know you've sort of, you know, touched on some aspects as we've gone, but maybe on some of the other features of sound that sit within there as a composition.
Those the rings you can hear, the ding, 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 that's through the synthesizer. So it's kind of like that way of emotionally relating, for me anyway, emotionally relating to the sounds, the transduction, you know, as a sound artist. It's like, where do you fit in to this thing? You're not just, I don't want to purely just make something that I say is my song and is my story or something. It's like how to involve yourself in your emotional experience of place through the equipment that you might have or the instruments that you might use. So here, this photo is that's the crossover point in Strathmore. And this is where the Pobble Bonk, the recording you can hear, is from. So you can see there, you know, it's this, and this hits this concrete lip. Yeah. So leaving in all those other sounds, like the bikes going past and the people coughing and the things like that, you know, I don't ever also want work to be completely purified or anything. And those, you can hear it there, the synthesized sounds, which kind of now has filled the space, or the memory or the echo of the frog. Definitely. That has been used previously. So it goes, at the start it's the original recording, and then of the traffic, and then there's the frog, and then a bit more of, you know, experience of place and what it's like to be in these places as a colonizer, and as these things that you know, just trying to pull apart things really, obviously painfully slowly and somewhat embarrassingly slowly. See there, you can see all the little pipes coming in. Where the runoff will come from gutters or wherever. So all that rubbish that you see on the side of the road, all these things that collect together, they all end up somewhere, you know. Even if they're tiny pipes and it's fragments, it's still it's no good. And you can just see how, yeah, there's grass on the sides, but grass grows everywhere. There's no, like, the time has been shifted through this place, and it's been really, it's a drain.
Yeah.
It's a drain. It's been used as a drain, and the Mary is used as a drain, and all these places are used as a drain, and everything that's prioritised are the developments around, and the highways, and the houses, and the apartment blocks, and the sports facilities. I don't know, like.
Yeah. Fundamentally reshaped the land.
Yeah. Well, they've reused it, which is almost, no, it's not worse, but it's almost like really gets in there. Like, that was where the water flowed, and they've actually gone in, and how do they even do that? I don't even know. And they've put concrete all the way. They've separated it from the country underneath and around it. You know, they've lifted it. They've lifted the water from the catchment.
That's where the photographic essay really works beautifully with this piece, I think, because you have the sound and it feels very intuitive if you've been in this place, but to visually connect it, to see those runoff points coming in, and, you know, it's easy to exist in your everyday and just not think about that. So work like this really, you know, helps to recenter what you're thinking about, I think. But I think I love the sense of movement and walking in all of your works, as in this one, but because I think it feels very, that sense, it feels very instrumental in terms of seeing walking as something that, which you and I have talked about, as something that is deeply connective and engaging. It's part of the human experience, and it's a place where we can think more deeply about our impact and our presence in spaces and places.
Yeah, because that is the thing, that everyone's on this trajectory, you know, in this work anyway. It's sort of about trajectories, and the water's on its own course.
It is,
we call it a course, but we're on it. I tend to see us more as on a trajectory, like the cars, the anonymous people in the cars going overhead, hurtling past, and the cyclists and the people just passing through, you know, passing, and never, like, there's always this sense of going from A to B, as they call it, A to H, I don't know, there's
always an end goal in mind.